Thank you very much for tuning in. So I've got a video here by a lady by the name of Jen. She's got a channel called Answers from Genesis. She deconverted from Christianity several years ago, and she's made some videos. She's got a video here entitled What or Who is God? Now I'd like to say straight away that in this video she's not offering any evidence for God. She's presupposing that there is a God and then trying to define this God. So bearing that in mind, we're gonna have a listen to what she's got to say and maybe comment along the way.
For a long time, I've thought about this for a long time. And at first, many of you who followed me at all, especially on Facebook, probably saw that I, for many, many, many years, would say that God equals love, or that love equals God. And so I thought that that was probably the answer for a long time. But
how many Christians have called into the atheist experience, and when they've been asked to define God, they've said, well, God is love and love is God? And Matt or somebody else has just said, well, then fine, by that definition I'm a theist, because I've got love in my life, I've experienced love, and if that's your definition of God, then that's fine. I'm a theist based on that. So this is the mindset that she was in for several years, just believing essentially that the definition of God is that God is love, nothing beyond that.
I wasn't satisfied with that. So then
it does seem to be a bit of a limiting definition for God.
Then I read in Proverbs 8 about wisdom and how wisdom was in the beginning.
Why go to the Bible for an answer on this question?
Before creation. And I thought, well, maybe God is love plus wisdom, right? But I still wasn't satisfied, and I knew that there had to be more. So seriously, I thought about this for years. It just kind of went.
What I'd like to ask is, why does she think there's anything at all? Unfortunately, this lady has not done a video on why she thinks a God exists at all. She did a very, well, won't say good, but she did a video deconstructing her Christian belief. But she's done nothing on why she believes there's even a God.
Went over and over and over in my mind, and still until some things started clicking. And so I want to just talk about the things that that I started seeing, basically. So the first thing that really caught my attention is the first law of thermodynamics. Yes.
Uh-oh, this sounds like a sort of William Lane Craig moment. I always think when not Christians or theists, when theists start referring to physics to prove their idea of what a God is, I start to feel a little bit more skeptical.
That's what we're going to talk about today. So the first law of thermodynamics, which is also called conservationism, states that energy is always conserved. Energy can be converted or changed from one form to another, but it cannot be created or destroyed. So what does that sound like? What does that remind me of? It reminds me of God. God cannot be created or destroyed. He can't be changed. He can go from one form to another, but not changed. So I started looking at this in light of what the Bible says. And today we're actually going to do a Bible study, even though it's something that I don't necessarily believe anymore. And
now that's something that I don't get. She's going to do a Bible study, even though she admits it's not something that she says she necessarily believes. What's the point in referring to a book in order to answer questions if you don't believe it?
I'll be doing a whole nother teaching on what I think the Bible is at different times, probably a bunch of them. But we are going to actually do a Bible study and see if we can get a better understanding of maybe who God is, even though we're just going to look at who the Israelites thought God is. All right?
Well, how do you know that God is a who? God may be a what, if God is at all.
So we're going to look at the attributes of God in the Bible. And in describing God, were the Israelites really describing energy? So I'm going to go through the attributes of God. I picked out one, maybe two verses that were kind of the verses that were most described the attributes of God as each attribute as we look at these. And so we're going to take a look at the verse first in its original English form, not in the original, in the English form that we see in the Bible. And then I'm going to actually substitute energy for God or something similar to that, and see if we can, if it holds up. All right, that's really what we're.
But I mean, what would this prove? Even if it does, even if it does hold up, what exactly would it prove? That the Israelites understood the full nature of energy in the same way that, for example, Einstein did, and that this energy is really God, a conscious being, which is all energy, omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent.
We're going to do. All right. So the first attribute of God is he is infinite. There's no beginning and no end. And we see that in Colossians 1:17, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So if I said, and energy is before all things, and in energy all things hold together, is that true? Absolutely. Energy is what holds all things together, all people together, all nature together. All things are held together by energy. So the first attribute, infinite, is there's no beginning, there's no end, and it holds all things together.
Well, as for there being no beginning and no end to energy, I'm not certain that that is the case. I think that that is probably unknown.
Definitely holds true. Immutable. God is immutable. He does not change. Malachi 3:6, for I, the Lord, do not change. What about energy? I, energy, do not change. Does energy ever change? No, it never changes. It changes form, but it doesn't change. Energy is always just energy. There's nothing that can change energy no matter what. No matter how hard you try, you cannot change energy. Self-sufficient. Energy, or God, I'm sorry, has no needs. John 5:26, for as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son also to have life in himself. Now let's change that to energy. For as energy has life in itself, so energy has granted the Son, or whoever, people, also to have life in themselves. Is that true? Whereas energy has life in itself, energy has granted life to each one of us. Absolutely true. That is absolutely true. We get our life from energy. Without energy, we would not have life.
Yeah, but I mean, energy as such is not an agent to grant anything at all. These are all just natural laws which happen. She's making it sound as if energy is actually an agent and bestowing benefits upon things in the universe, which she hasn't established that this energy is actually hasn't got any kind of agency. It's just a natural attribute of existence.
And so energy is self-sufficient. That's the attribute there that we're looking at. All right, energy cannot lie. God cannot lie. It's not contradictory to his nature. The verse here, Hebrew.
In what sense can energy either lie or tell the truth? Again, it sounds like she's creating agency out of nothing without any justification whatsoever. It sounds literally meaningless to me to say that energy cannot lie.
Hebrews 6, verses 17 and 18. So when God desired to show more convincingly the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it with an oath in which it is impossible for God to lie. So God cannot lie. Let's look at energy. Switch it all up here. So if energy desires to show more convincingly the unchangeable character of its purpose, it guarantees with an oath in which it is impossible for energy to lie.
Yeah, well, anything that is not a human being cannot lie. As far as we know, only human beings lie. So that sounds utterly meaningless.
Can energy lie? Can energy be anything other than consistent? Can energy go against its nature? No.
Well, wait a minute. That's a bit different. A lie. I mean, a lie is she's talking about can God lie? Lying is not necessarily going against your nature. It could be just saying something which you know not to be true. And she's talking about energy, and she's unjustifiably personifying it and saying that it can't lie.
Absolutely not. Energy cannot go against its nature. It's impossible for energy to go against its nature. Nothing is too difficult. So I've got a couple of verses here. Genesis 18:14, is anything too hard for the Lord? Let's substitute that. Is anything too hard for energy? Of course not, right? If we think about this in a scientific mind, like,
well, there are things which are, again, she's making it sound as if this energy is an agent that it can try to do things and never fail at doing them. Obviously, we know that there are things which, even if this energy god is an agent, is too difficult for this agent. For example, healing an amputee. This energy agent can't do that.
Like a true scientific mind here, as we're going through these passages, let's see how much they line up. Is anything too hard for energy? No. The second one is Jeremiah 32:17, and this one I just want to sing the song, "Ah, Lord God, thou hast made the heavens and the earth with an outstretched arm." I almost forget the words now. Nothing is too difficult for thee. And so that is the verse that tells us about, of course, God. But let's look at it for energy. Energy, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and your outstretched arm. And of course, that's just putting, I can't remember what the word is now, but putting the characteristics of a man to something that's not a man. Nothing is too hard for you. So energy, nothing is too hard for you. That is very, very true. Nothing is too hard for energy. It makes it, to me, much easier to understand who this God character is. When we think in abstract about God and nothing's too hard for him and he can't lie and he can't do all of these different things, or he can do all of these different things, it's a little bit hard for people to understand. But when we actually put something to it that we know and we understand, and it's not quite so abstract, it's a little more concrete. Energy is still abstract, but not as abstract as the thought of God. Then to me, it makes it easier to understand. All right, let's go to the three omnis. That's what I call them. These are what atheists always mock. This is why many people actually become atheists, because they do not see any way that these three omnis could be true. So omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence.
Well, speaking for myself as an atheist, I've got no problem with the three omnis. This is the God of classical theism, and quite evidently, if this God of classical theism exists, then it's all powerful, it's all knowing, and it's present everywhere. I just accept that. The reason that I'm an atheist is because there's no evidence for that. And of all the atheists I've heard talking on the Atheist Experience and other shows, I haven't heard any of them saying, oh, it's impossible for the three omnis to be so. No, it's not. I don't know whether it's possible or impossible, but I just haven't seen any evidence of it. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop it there. I would love to hear your comments. Obviously, just coming back to what I was saying before, she's starting from the point that there is a God. So she's not presenting here evidence for the existence of God. She's presupposing that there is a God, and she's trying to rationalize, using the Bible, her own conception of what God is. She started off saying, oh, God is love and love is God. Then, well, maybe God's wisdom as well. And no, that's not good enough. Well, actually, energy is kind of consistent, and it has no beginning, it has no end, etc., etc. Maybe God's energy. And I mean, she's not the first person that said that God is energy. You know, we've got woo merchants coming on saying, oh, God is energy, and you know, this is so commonplace it's become a cliche, particularly among sort of New Age Wu type theists, which, however, with her, I wouldn't say she is that. She is firmly rooted in Judaism, because for her, God is an agent, is a personal being who somehow is ever present in the form of energy. In other words, all the energy that holds all the atoms together, God is there. God is very much rooted in the material world. This is what I don't really get about her God, because as far as I understood from Christians mainly, and Muslims too, God is beyond the material world. Now, if God is beyond the material world, I don't think God is energy. Energy is something that we have discovered which exists in the material world. And the God of classical theism tends to be a supernatural being beyond the material world, but which they say can interact with the material world. So confusing. I think she's confused, and I think that she's grasping at straws. And I don't think that the parallels. I don't think that her trying to harmonize her conception of God with the Old Testament definition of God is really something that works, or is something which is productive at all. Because even if it aligns with her view that God is energy, where does that get us? It still doesn't prove anything. It still doesn't prove that there's any agency in energy as such. So I'll leave that with you, and I would love to hear your comments. I'll be back again with another video soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.